October 21st, 1996, the hills of Malibu, California. A small brush fire has exploded into a red blaze, threatening hundreds of homes and thousands of lives.
That's all the line you have, Al!
Gusting winds whip the flames as they climb unpredictably up the hillsides. It's an out-of-control inferno. One of the hundreds of firefighters battling the blaze that day was 52-year-old Bill Jensen. He was part of a strike team assigned to protect a house on a ridge above the fire.
We were standing out at the peak of this hill behind a house, probably 50 feet from the house, and all of a sudden the wind changed and air come roaring toward us.
Within seconds, a 200-foot wall of flames shot up the steep canyon wall, heading straight for Bill and the other members of his team.
It's hard to even describe the sound of a fire that's traveling that fast.
When I got through the smoke and the fire, ran out to the street, and then realized Bill wasn't around, and I just go, "Where's Bill?"
Where's Bill? Did you see Bill? We started towards the safety zone and Bill came around the other side.
But Bill wasn't there either. While trying to make his escape, a finger of fire had exploded over the hillside, hurling him against a retaining wall.
The fire just blew me just like nothing. I remember the terrific amount of heat. At that point, I felt the flames burning on my face and my left side. Like being in hell.
In a daze, he dragged himself through the smoke.
I remember turning around and seeing Bill walking out of that same path that we were on. He was severely burned with second and third degree burns, skin peeling.
I honestly didn't think he was going to make it. I thought that I lost a buddy of mine right there.
In shock and nearly dead from his burns, Bill was airlifted to the Grossman Burn Center in Sherman Oaks, California. There he was met by two of the top burn specialists in the world, a father and son team, Doctors Richard and Peter Grossman.
And once you get your lungs, I'll take care of you.
Bill had second and third degree burns over 70% of his body.
Okay, buddy, hang in there. I know this hurts.
No, this hurts.
We immediately see that his face is severely burned. His hands and his arms are severely burned. This is a critical burn.
Fire investigators would later determine, based on the damage to his clothing, that Bill had walked through a 1,200-degree blast furnace to escape. Sue Jensen first heard what happened to her husband on TV.
They showed a Glendale rig, the one that he was on, and they said two were severely injured. One was a 52-year-old veteran. Well, it was him, I knew that.
And I don't want to be talking about
Bill's wife and sons rushed to the hospital, where the doctors prepared them for the worst.
He's got some serious injuries right now. That much surface area that's burned makes things very serious, and why his condition is really guarded right now.
Bill's burns were so severe, doctors gave him only a 5 to 10% chance of survival.
Just on first impression, I did not think he would make it.
1, 2, 3. Fantastic.
He was in the critical care room and was totally bandaged. He never has taken aspirin in his entire life. And to see him so injured, it just was overwhelming.
For his fellow firefighters, it was impossible to believe that anything, even fire, could bring down the 6-foot hulk of a man they called Magilla Gorilla.
Everyone loved to be around him. He was always a physical, fun-loving guy, a real genuine person that was just always someone that loved to have a good time.
He had wanted to be a firefighter since he was 7 and had spent 27 years on the job.
Bill enjoyed being a firefighter. He loved helping people, loved the camaraderie, the teasing with the guys, and just the job. He thoroughly enjoyed being aligned, so that's why he chose to stay a fireman instead of going up the ranks.
And now he was deep in the middle of every firefighter's worst nightmare. The medical team worked quickly to remove as much of Bill's burned skin as possible.
The faster we get rid of the dead tissue, the less likelihood of infection.
But the third-degree burns go deeper than the surface of Bill's skin, reaching into the bloodstream.
The skin is burned, but all the red cells, the white cells, and the platelets are circulating underneath that skin are all parboiled. So they're all blown up, they're erupted. That is debris.
That debris in the blood can lead to kidney failure, so it must be flushed out with enormous amounts of IV fluids.
Years ago, patients would die from what they call burn shock. In essence, burn shock was kidney failure. Kidney failure was because we didn't give enough fluids at the time.
The doctors also knew that Bill would need massive skin grafts to cover his wounded body. But he didn't have much skin left that could be harvested for grafting.
We pretty well know, we look on the inside of the thigh, we look on the inside of the arm, look at the back, the buttocks. The rest of it is burnt.
In a series of surgeries, the doctors took parts of Bill's skin that hadn't been burned, as well as skin from human cadavers, and grafted it onto the burned areas. It was a painstaking, tedious process, as Bill's body rejected much of the transplanted skin.
I was about 16 or 18 surgeries. They would start telling us he could lose his fight anytime because of infection or his will to live.
There are people who don't have as severe burn as Bill, and they lose the will to survive. And once that's lost, no matter how good the doctor is, no matter how good the surgery is, no matter how great the nursing is, you lose the will to survive, you're not. I think that I could see that will to survive in his eyes, in his face.
For most of 6 weeks, Bill was unconscious. But miraculously, his body began to overcome the terrible ordeal he had been through. He slowly began healing. When he finally woke up, he saw his wife for the first time since the accident.
To see her, I got to. Through all of this, my reserve strength, yes sir, even the many years I've been married before you, she has been the strong one of the family.
Now, one of the biggest challenges was saving Bill's left hand. It had been burned so badly that a conventional skin graft was not possible. It looked as if amputation was the alternative.
And they told me that the chances of saving the hand or the arm was not that good.
But Dr. Grossman insisted on making one last-ditch effort to grow tissue on the wounded hand, using a primitive technique called an abdominal flap. It was a procedure used to treat the burned hands of fighter pilots during World War II.
We make an incision in the abdominal wall. We lift up the skin, make a pocket large enough so that we can place the head in. So we shove this in here and make him into a Napoleon, burying his hand in the abdominal wall.
With his hand sutured inside the flap, the hope is that the blood supplied from Bill's abdominal wall will flow to the injured hand and help it heal. Bill's hand was buried in his abdomen for 3 weeks until doctors felt it was ready to come out.
When we make that incision and bring it out, there's a lot of Hail Marys and Our Fathers to make sure that things are on.
But as you can see, the flap that was created from the abdomen, in which the hand was buried, has attached very nicely to the hand. And in essence, what it's done is it's given a blood supply into the hand, and it's transported the new healthy tissue onto the top of the hand.
When it was completely taken out, it had grown a thick layer of new tissue.
It looks like a mitten. We take it out of the belly. Now, it's a mitten. Now what we've got to do is we've got to go plunk, 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 plunk. We've got to separate it.
Once the fingers were separated, doctors could now try to graft skin to them.
So now we've grafted all the raw surface areas of the back of the hand and all the digits. Now we're going to put a dressing on, and now we're just going to wait and see if we get some graft take.
While they waited, there was still much critical work to be done on Bill. Huge patches of his body remained open wounds that required regular. After several weeks, it was clear that the doctor's last-ditch effort had saved Bill's hand. The new skin was taking, and the rest of his body was also healing.
Okay, Joe, he's burning out. Good.
Finally, Bill Jensen was ready to go home. He had been at the Grossman Burn Center for 3.5 months, had defied all the odds and survived. Bill was released on his 53rd birthday to the cheers of several dozen well-wishers.
Hi, Tony.
Hi, Bill.
Feel a bit better?
Much better.
Good.
Today, Bill gives hours of his time helping other burn victims come to grips with their injuries.
He's just blossomed. He never used to be able to speak in public, a man of few words, and now he tells a story to everybody.
Get you in, get you home in your own environment. You're going to heal up a lot better.
Although his left hand will never be completely functional, Bill is more than happy with what he's got.
I can move the wrist a little bit, the thumb a little bit. That's about all. But there's many thousands of people that have never had a hand or an arm or leg to use, so I've felt lucky in 52 years of having it.
In fact, Bill feels lucky about a lot of things. Far from seeing his ordeal as a tragedy, he sees it as having opened a door on a whole life.
It's been the best thing in the world that ever happened to me. I think it just opened my eyes, my heart, my arms up a little more to help people more. And I wear every one of the scars I got very proudly.